Walk into almost any weight room and you'll eventually hear some version of the same warning. Don't do too much cardio. It'll eat your muscle. Running is, quote, catabolic. The treadmill is where your gains go to die. For a lot of lifters, cardio has become the thing that you're allowed to fear. Except that's not really what the research says. There's a real effect hiding under that fear, but it's smaller, more specific, and way more manageable than the gym bro version makes it sound. Today, I'm putting cardio kills your gains up against the actual studies, where the fear came from, what combining cardio and lifting really does to muscle, and how to run, row, or ride without sabotaging the work you're doing under the bar. Let's get into it. The fear isn't made up. It has a name, the interference effect. And it comes from a real, decades-old finding. Back in 1980, a researcher named Robert Hickson had people train hard for strength and hard for endurance at the same time for weeks. What he found became the foundation of the whole idea. The group doing both eventually saw their strength gains stall out compared to the group that only lifted. Endurance improved fine, but strength hit a ceiling. The pure lifting group didn't. That single study launched 40 years of research into a real question. When you ask your body to get bigger and stronger and to get better at endurance, do those goals fight each other? Plain English, the interference effect is real, and it has real history behind it. But the two goals can interfere idea is a very different claim from cardio eats your muscle. The gym bro version quietly swapped one for the other. So here's the key question for most people watching this. If your goal is building muscle, does adding cardio actually shrink your results? When researchers pool the studies, the answer is actually pretty reassuring. A large 2022 review combined the controlled trials that put resistance training alone up against resistance training plus endurance work. For muscle hypertrophy, actual size, concurrent training did not meaningfully compromise growth compared to lifting on its own. The muscle got built either way. An earlier review looking specifically at muscle size reached the same conclusion from a different angle. For hypertrophy in particular, the evidence for a meaningful interference effect is weak. When training is set up sensibly, adding aerobic work doesn't appear to steal the size you're building. So, if your main goal is building muscle, the research says cardio is not the enemy of size. In controlled studies, people who lifted and did cardio built essentially the same muscle as people who only lifted. Now, to be honest about the evidence. Because this channel runs on evidence, interference is not a myth. It's just narrower than the common fear. The research points to a few specific places where it shows up. A well-known 2012 meta-analysis found that the interference effect was strongest for power and explosive strength. Think jump height and rate of force. And much weaker, often negligible, for pure muscle size. It also found the effect scaled with how much and how often you did cardio, and that running tended to interfere more than cycling, probably because of the extra muscle damage from all the eccentric pounding impact. At the molecular level, the old story was a clean on-off switch. Endurance training flips on one pathway that supposedly shuts down the muscle building pathway. The more recent work says that it's far messier than that. The, quote, switch is real, but partial, short-lived, and easily swamped by how you actually program your training. Interference is real for explosive power, for high cardio volume, and especially for lots of hard running. It's barely a factor for someone doing moderate cardio for health and conditioning while lifting to truly build muscle. If muscle size is mostly protected, why do so many people swear cardio wrecked their gains? Usually, it's not the cardio itself. It's what heavy cardio does to everything around your lifting. When you do a hard endurance session, it can leave behind fatigue and muscle soreness that follow you into your next leg day, meaning you lift with less quality, fewer good reps, less load. Over months, worse lifting sessions mean worse results. But notice what's actually happening. The cardio didn't dissolve your muscle. It quietly lowered the quality of your strength training. And then there's the simplest culprit of all. Cardio burns calories. If you're doing a lot of it and not eating enough to cover both the running and the rebuilding, you're now in an energy deficit. And building muscle in a deficit is hard for reasons that have nothing to do with some magic anti-muscle property of cardio. Plain English version, when cardio kills gains, the real killers are usually residual fatigue, killing your lifts, and burning more calories than you're replacing. Fix the fuel and the fatigue, and most of the so-called interference disappears. Now, because this channel runs on evidence, not vibes, the fine print, and it cuts both ways here. 1. If you're a competitive power or explosive athlete, this matters more to you. The interference effect hits power and rate of force development hardest. If your sport lives on jumping, sprinting, or maximum explosiveness, high concurrent endurance volume is a real program concern, not something to just wave off. 2. Modality and dose genuinely matter. Long, frequent, high-intensity running is the most likely to interfere. Moderate cycling, rowing, incline walking, or a couple of conditioning sessions a week are a very different stimulus from marathon-level mileage stacked on top of lifting. 3. Exercise order is less important than people think, but it's not nothing. Research on doing cardio before versus after lifting is fairly mixed. And for most people, the total dose and recovery matter far more than the sequence. If one session clearly matters more to you that day, just do the one first while you're fresh. 4. And most important, these are population averages. Your training age, your recovery, your sleep, your nutrition, and how much cardio you're actually doing all move the needle. Cardio is true for the average lifter doing sensible amounts. It is not a blank check for unlimited mileage on top of a hard lifting program. I'd rather you use cardio as a tool you control than avoid it out of a fear the research simply doesn't support. So here's the practical version of all this. Keep doing cardio. Your heart and your recovery want it. For muscle building goals, moderate cardio is not going to erase your hard-earned gains. If you're worried about interference, just favor low-impact modes. Cycling, rowing, incline walking, and the elliptical tend to interfere less than lots of hard running. Separate your hardest cardio from your hardest lifting. Put them on different days or several hours apart, so fatigue from one doesn't tank the quality of the other. Eat enough to cover both. If you're training for size, don't accidentally diet yourself by adding cardio without adding food. Lead with your priority. On days you do both, do the goal that matters most to you first, while you're freshest. That's the actual scoreboard. Cardio was never the thing crossing off your gains. Under-eating and under-recovering were. So, the verdict on cardio. Based on the evidence, for building muscle, cardio does not kill your gains. The interference effect is real, but it mostly hits explosive power and shows up with high volumes of hard running. Not with the moderate amount of cardio most people should be doing for their health. When cardio seems to hurt your progress, the usual culprits are residual fatigue, lowering the quality of your lifts, and an energy deficit from not eating enough. Manage the dose, protect your hardest sessions, and eat to support the work. And cardio becomes an ally, not a threat. Next time, do you actually have to train to failure to build muscle? Or is grinding every set into the ground just buying you fatigue you don't really need? If you'd rather train from evidence than from hype, subscribe. This is Proof of Reps, and I'll see you in the next one.